What's up, my bros? It's Game Legend 88 here, back with my video. Today, I'm going to be, making another video, obviously, but, today, I'm going to be making a collector's guide to the M17 series protective masks. This might possibly be a multi-part series. If it is, this specific one is going to be talking about, a guide to the face pieces themselves. I might make a separate video on, accessories. This is really just on the face pieces themselves. So yeah, I guess we'll start off here. So starting off, one of the main things when you're looking to collect the M17 series is look out for certain manufacturers and stuff. Now, some of you may not know, but the ABC M17s, they had multiple manufacturers. All models. Actually, I shouldn't say all models after the ABC M17. There could have possibly been M17A1s that were made by certain manufacturers, and I'll get into that here in a second. But we're starting off here with the ABC M17 with their several manufacturers. So the ABC M17 was made by multiple, with three main manufacturers that I know of. I don't know of any more besides the main three. This is one of the main three. This one is the most uncommon manufacturer out of all three. This is Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. This one was made in the last week of October 1962 by Firestone. Yeah, the Firestone face pieces are pretty rare. So if you're looking for, a manufacturer, if you want to get a more uncommon face piece, go for a Firestone one. It's the least common that'll show up. Now, the reason why Firestone ones are so rare is that they only had a year. They only had a year of production, because shortly into February or so, February or March 1963, they started in the first week of February. Last week of January 1962. They started in the last week of January. Excuse me. The last week of January 1962, stopped around February or March 1963. So they only had a year's worth of production. I'm still not sure why this is yet. I'm doing quite a bit of research into this right now. I'm not exactly sure yet of why they had stopped production, but yeah, Firestone is the rarest manufacturer. Second rarest is DT. I don't have any other manufacturers for the ABC M17 besides the Firestone one, but DT, it should just say DT on the side there. I've heard it could be Dryden Tire and Rubber Company, though I'm not 100% sure, so I'm not gonna call it as that. I'm still gonna call it DT, but it'll say D.T, and then usually a date of 1961 through 64, since I believe it was around 1964 DT stopped. I know for sure they started in 1961, and I believe they stopped in 1964. They're still producing masks in 1963, because I found 1963 dated DT ones. Yeah, DT is the second rarest, and the least rare company is MSA. Obviously, they procured the most face pieces. MSA ones, this is another thing for this collector's guide I'm going to mention. If you're looking for MSA ABC M17s, I highly advise not getting early production MSA ones. Early production MSA ones, they had some sort of weird mold problem with their rubber blend. I'm not exactly sure what it's all about, but those face pieces easily deteriorate. About all the face pieces I've seen from 1964 through 61 were always dry rotted. It doesn't matter where they were stored or anything. For what I've found, for what I've seen so far, they're always deteriorated. Like the bottom straps right here, the neck straps will have torn off. There's usually dry rot all over the face piece. Sometimes copper poisoning, but the rubber is super soft and mushy and sticky, and it'll just tear at the slightest pull. So, I recommend getting a 1965 or newer dated MSA one. You still do see 1965 and 1966 dated ones that are still have a lot of dry rot on them, though. They definitely occur less often than the earlier ones. So look out for that. Real quick thing to note is that Firestone face pieces and also DT face pieces, and occasionally MSA face pieces, they will bloom they will start blooming. This is not an indicator of the face pieces deteriorating. It's an indicator that the face pieces are preserving themselves by excreting this bloom. As you can see on this face piece, it is pretty bloomed. You might not be able to see it that well, but it's pretty badly bloomed. It's not as bad as when I got it. When I got it, it was absolutely covered in bloom. I might show a photo up here. But yeah, it was pretty bad. These Firestone ones do it really bad. They're probably the worst. GT ones also do it too, and it's more of like a brownish orange, like a brownish yellow, and it's like more of like a chalky substance, kind of like the MSA ones, from what I can tell. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about bloom. As you can see, the outlet valve cover on this face piece right here is dated what is that? The second week of April, 1962, by Mine Safety Appliances, or MSA. This is quite common to see early face pieces like this one right here with an updated, with a newer exhale valve assembly on it. I'm still trying to figure out the reason why they did this too. I think there was some sort of problem with it, of the the valve assembly not properly sealing, or possibly getting stuck. I'm not 100% sure why this is yet, but I'm looking into that too. It's more common to see these with the replaced XL valve assemblies, though. Yeah, it's a bit more uncommon to see the original ones, though you can find ones with the original ones still. So, yeah. And as you can see, this one has optical inserts installed, though I'm not really going to go into that, as that's kind of more for the accessories part. Yeah, on the interior, you can obviously see the nose cup in there and stuff. The nose cup's not properly, seated in place, which I don't know why this is. I haven't seen it on any of our face pieces, so I think this was just like a user error from just for my specific face piece. But yeah, there's nothing else really to note in the interior. I guess, like, really, if you're getting MSA one, make sure the rubber is in nice condition, because if you try to remove the filters and the rubber's not in the best of condition, it will most likely rip. As yeah, these ABC M17s, especially the early MSA ones, will do that. So yeah, look out for that. So I guess that's pretty much all I wanted to say about the ABC M17. For latest, what you want to look out for is early MSA face pieces. Firestone or DT ones, those deteriorate. Those preserve a bit better, and they're rare. So look out for those if you want a rare face piece. So look out for a DT or Firestone one. Try to avoid early MSA ones, but if it's in real nice condition, you might want to pick one up if it's an early MSA one, as it's pretty uncommon to find those in pretty nice condition. I got extremely lucky on my face piece, and it doesn't have a speck of dry rot on it. It's quite common to find dry rot on these face pieces, but if you're lucky, like myself, you'll get a face piece that has not a speck of dry rot on it. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this face piece right here. So now I'm going to be getting on to the M17A1. So yeah, what we're going to be talking about here about the M17A1 is mostly the E13 R13 series prototypes. Here, for the most part. Now, if you don't know, the E13 R13 series prototypes was the prototype designation of the M17A1. They were introduced in around 1964 or 1965, the E13 R13 face piece. And E13 R13 face pieces will look pretty much identical to an M17A1, or scratch that, exactly identical. There's very few ways you can tell them apart. Really, the only way is based on the manufacturers. If you didn't know, the E13R13 is what they did is they took early face pieces from obviously 1964 and older for the most part. Yeah, I think there might be a few 1965 dated face pieces, but they took earlier ABC M17s. They got rid of the C13 emitter assembly and replaced with the C13R1. Or at this point, it was probably some sort of experimental designation. But they replaced it with the C13R1 assembly, and they installed the E49 the M49 protective mask drinking kit, and the E50 protective mask resuscitation kit in there. or more commonly known later on as the M1 canteen coupling, M1 canteen system, and the M1 resuscitation tube system. But yeah, that's their experimental designations. Was the E40, the E49 drinking that E49 drinking kit, and the E50 resuscitation kit. But yeah, they would pretty much just take early face pieces and then put a C13R1 assembly on there with the E49 drinking tube kit and the E50 resuscitation tube kit. You can find some very, very rare examples, though, of the E13R12, which they did the exact same thing, except they only had an E49 drinking tube device in it, so it essentially is the exact same as an M17A2, except it was converted in the mid-60s. Those are pretty rare, so if you're looking at an M17A2 that doesn't look quite right, you might actually want to take a closer look, as it could be an E13R12 face piece. Just really be looking for the dates if you're looking for an E13R13 or an E13R12. But yeah, E13R13s you want to find around 1964 older dated face pieces with 1965 dated outlet C13R1 assembly outlet covers. So yeah, like this right here, or I guess I should be showing off my M17A1. You don't want to get this right here. You're going to want that to say 1965 or older. So if the outlet valve cover is dated 1965 and the face piece is dated 1965 or older, that's an E13R13 prototype. So yeah, you're gonna want to pick that up if you see one. If the face piece is an early face piece, but with a valve cover from like the late 60s, then it is an M17A1 converted from an ABC M17, as some M17A1s were made out of converted ABC M17 face pieces, where they did the same thing as the E13 series, the later E13 series prototypes like the E13R12 and E13R13. They would take an ABC M17 face piece and then just retrofit it like an E13R13, except it was later, but it was a later conversion, so it's considered an M17A1 because it was converted post-adoption for the M17A1. For what I've found, the M17A1, face pieces were actually starting to be procured in 1968. I'm yet to find a face piece from like an outlet valve, like outlet valve covers and face pieces put together that were like from 1967. So I believe they actually started procuring face pieces and assembling them with the C13R1 assemblies until 1968. So that's when they started production. This one right here is dated the last week of September 1970. So it's in the second year of production. Or no, never mind, the third year of production. But yeah, you're gonna want to look for either early conversion face pieces that would lead it to believe to be an E13R13 or E13R12, or just a converted M17A1 would be worth some money too. They'd probably be worth a bit more than the procured face pieces. So if you can find an early face piece, even though it has the later style outlet valve cover, so it's still technically considered an M17A1. But it'd still be worth a bit more since it's an earlier face piece that was converted into one. So that's quite an interesting topic to discuss there. I think that's about it for the M17A1. Well, I guess one thing to note is that there are later examples dated from the early 80s that you'll find sometimes where, if I fold over the M6A2 hood here, if you look in the interior, which if I can get that in there, you might be able to see the resuscitation tube or not. You can kind of see it there, that white tipped thing. You'll see some examples where that's cut off almost completely so that you can't use it. That is a 1983 converted face piece that they took an M17A1, cut the resuscitation tube short to make it an M17A2. And yeah, they're not really worth anything more. If anything, they might be worth a bit less since they're technically an M17A2 now. And they were essentially, just like reconditioned into M17A2s. Kind of like how the ABC M17 was, some ABC M17s were reconditioned into M17A1s and E13R13s. So I guess we'll get on to the M17A2 here. The M17A2 obviously started production in 1983. There's not too much to discuss about the M17A2 face pieces. Really the only price-wise thing you're going to want to look for on them is if they're actually E13R12s, so they are dated like from the 60s. They only have an E49 drinking kit on it. or obviously by this time it was called the M1 drinking tube system. But yeah, face pieces are dated between 1983 and 1986. They stopped production in 1986. The M17A2 is the most common model of the M17 series. They saw, yeah, just like a pretty much a 3 to about 4, yeah, like a 3-year production span. Though they procured plenty of face pieces. Really, this was kind of just a stopgap while the United States military was trying to find an updated design to replace the M17 series. They really just produced this face piece to, you know, just like replace the M17A1 because of its drinking tube, you know, its resuscitation tube problem. So they didn't have to worry about that. So they could focus on, you know, designing a new face piece to use, like the M40 series. But yeah, this face piece right here, this small face piece, has obviously a later M6A2 on there, but that's not going to be discussed in this video. But yeah, this face piece is dated the first week of July 1984 by Mine Safety Appliances. So this one is dated a holiday, like my you know, my ABC M17. My ABC M17 was made during the October week, and this one was made during the 4th of July week. So that's kind of cool. But that's not really anything to note. Obviously in the interior you can see the M1 resuscitation tube, maybe. Probably not. But yeah, there's nothing really to note about these face pieces that really makes them worth anything. I guess one thing I'll show off here, I'll get the hood over here, and then, you know, go check out these other two M17A2 face pieces right here. So, this is another size small face piece. This one is dated 1985, specifically the 3rd week of January 1985 by Mine Safety Appliances. So this one's like mid-production of the M17A2. This one has an outlet valve cover from December 1984. That's not really anything special. Yeah, you can see what it looks like, obviously, without the hood on. I guess really the only thing you'd want to look out for the M17A2s is really the wear on them. As this most commonly occurs on the M17A2s, you see that the lacquered finish right here will be a lot of the times worn off. On my hooded M17A2 here, this one was heavily issued and has a lot of the lacquered finish wearing off, but it's not anything too detrimental to the rubber yet, so I won't really worry about it for now. But this one's in relatively nice condition, and the lacquered finish hasn't really worn off. That's one thing I forgot to talk about earlier with the ABC M17 and M17A1 face pieces, is that if you want to look for the lacquered finish being worn off. If it's worn off in spots where it contacts the rubber, you should get the head harness tabs replaced, as it'll start to give the rubber copper poisoning, which these buckles were made out of copper and coated in a lacquered finish so that they did not, so that the copper would not migrate onto the rubber. And this butyl latex mix that the face pieces are made out of reacts very negatively to copper and will cause the rubber to pretty much become brittle and melt. Kind of like what happens with the ABC M17s, except it only happens around the buckle areas. And it just makes the rubber super soft and, you know, like just, you know, papery, and just rips to pieces. So, you might want to treat that. Obviously, yeah, like I said, you can look on that for the earlier face pieces too to make sure that their finishes are not wearing off, though normally it seems like it only occurs with the M17A2s due to them being used a lot for training in the early 90s, the early to mid 90s. But yeah, really the only face piece to look for an M17A2, excuse me if you see me in the video there, but is the extra small face pieces. The extra small face pieces are a little bit uncommon. They're not that uncommon. They're worth a tiny bit more just because they're slightly less common than the other size face pieces. I guess, yeah, really an interesting thing to note is that these face pieces were issued into the late 90s and early 2000s when it was replaced by the M45, but that's not really, you know, we're not really going into the history here, we're just going into a guide. This one was made in the, let's see, this is, yeah, February, March, yeah, February, March, first week of April, I think. Yeah, first week of April or so, 1985 by Mine Safety Appliances. This one's an earlier production one, but I don't know if it's the first mold or second mold. I think this might be a second mold. On the face pieces, on the extra small face pieces, early ones will have a full inturned lip, whatever that is, and then on the later ones, it has a 3/4 interned lip. I'm not sure what they're talking about. I'm not sure if they're talking about the interface seal or something else. But I think that's what they're talking about is the interface seal, is this face piece does not have an upper part of the seal, so I think this might have... Yeah, so I think this might be a later contract one, and I think is what they're talking about is the interface seal. So I think on the earlier ones they have a full interface seal instead of the forehead part missing. But yeah, I guess look for earlier production ones of these two with the full interface seal, as those can be worth a bit more. But yeah, that's really it for the M17A2 series, or M17A2 field protective masks, or chemical protective masks, as that at this point they weren't using the field protective designation anymore. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, as I don't really have much more to discuss. One thing real quick I forgot to touch bases on, as you may have noticed in the video, is I did not clearly specify the differences in the models, which you'd think if I was doing a collector's guide to the M17 series, I would make it a bit more obvious the differences in the models of the face pieces. So let's go over that real quick, and then we'll finally wrap up the video. So first off, this is the ABC M17, as I stated in the video. The ABC M17 does not have any style of drinking device or resuscitation tube. It just has a plain exhale valve assembly. As you can see, nothing on there, just a clear assembly. You can also tell because there's a metal lip over there that goes over the rubber, so that's another way you can tell, though that's just a minor thing. You can also tell based on the dates too, though, like, I don't really think you'll need that if you can just have a frontal view of the face piece, but as long as they're dated from 1961 or 1960 to 1960, I'd say, yeah, to around 1967, then it's definitely going to be an ABC M17, unless it's a converted M17A1 from an ABC M17. So if on either if it's a converted M17A1 or an E13R12 or E13R13 face piece. But yeah. And so let's see, here's the M17. This is the M17A1. The M17A1 looks about identical to the M17A2, but there is a difference. The M17A1 is definitely easier to tell the difference from. Or at least if you know the way if you look at it close enough, and you'll be able to tell, you know. But and the way you can tell here is that the torque lever is always in the up position, like that. Normally on the M17A2, it's tilted to the right. Though sometimes they can just be sitting upwards like that from getting, just moved up while sitting in storage or something. But usually you can tell it based on that, because usually you'll see the M17A2s will have it turned to the right. M17A1s will always have it in the middle, because there's tension on both sides if we were to turn it both ways, so it can't just slide over easily to one side. You can also tell based on the dates, obviously. The dates range between 1966 to 1981 or 1982 for those face pieces. Though I should note that obviously the 1966 and 67 dated ones are going to be converted at ABC M17s. The 1968 and newer ones were freshly procured M17A1 face pieces. And some M17A1 face pieces from 1981 and around 1982 can be field modified. I'll tell you what that is, but they can be field modified to have been converted into an M17A2, so the dates can't always be, perfect. Normally you don't see the field modified M17A1s, though you can see them sometimes. But yeah, the interior of the M17A1. I think I'll show you what the interior looks like real quick with the light. So, not the best light to show off the interior, but you can see down in there the resuscitation tube and the drinking tube. As long as you see the big white tipped tube in there, you know it's an M17A1. that little black tube next to it is the drinking tube. That tube is on both the M17A1 and A2, so that's not a thing that you can tell the difference by. You can also tell the differences by looking at the inlet valve discs. Normally they're black on the early ones, the early M17A1s. The later M17A1s will have the white ones, so that's not too much of a changing factor. You just want to look to see if you can see the M1 resuscitation tube in there. And like I said, some will be converted and will be missing that. And that essentially is what they did, is they either cut the resuscitation tube short, or they removed it completely from the facepiece by just completely removing it. And that leaves the only way of telling is based on the secondary outlet valve in the facepiece and the date of the facepiece. That's the only remnants of it being an M17A1. Otherwise, it was a field modified M17A2. So yeah, they're classified as M17A2s if they are missing the drinking tube device, even if they were originally an M17A1. So then I'll show the differences between the M17A2. So the M17A2, the dates range with the M17A2 between 1983 and 1986. They started production in 1983, stopped in 1986. Most face pieces you will see will be dated between 1984 and 1985. They procured a few less face pieces in 1983 and 1986, though you can still find them relatively easily. They're just slightly more uncommon. But yeah, this face piece is dated 1985, so quite a typical dated one. But as you can see, the main factoring difference, after I fold over the head harness real quick, so I can show you a better look at the interior. Not sure why I didn't do that on the other face pieces, but as you can see that there's just a drinking tube in there and no resuscitation tube. That's what makes it an M17A2. Otherwise, it's the exact same. Yeah, that's pretty much the only difference. Otherwise, they're identical to the M17A1. Rubber compositions can be slightly different depending on the production years. The early M17A1s will have a 2E8 style rubber blend, and the late M17A1s and all the M17A2s led to well, actually, no, I shouldn't say that. All late M17A1s and earlier M17A2s will have the 2E27 rubber blend. As you can see, this outlet valve cover says 2E27. That's the rubber blend for the outlet valve cover, but the facepiece mold is from that 1985 style mold, which was used from 1985 to 1986 on the face pieces. It's designated 2E51. That's also how you can tell. If you can't see the date stamp quite well, as long as you see a 2E51 stamp, you'll know for sure it's an M17A2. If you see a 2E27 stamp, there's still a slight chance it could be an M17A1. Though but it's highly likely it's just an M17A2. And obviously, it's pretty much a guaranteeing factor based on if it's an extra small size, as M17A2s were essentially only procured in this size, though there could be a few experimental M17A1s that used an extra small face piece, in the late 70s and early 80s, right before they switched to producing the M17A2. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this part, so yeah, I guess we'll conclude the video here. So yeah, I'll probably have a part 2 on accessories and other equipment for the face pieces. So if you're looking out for that, then I guess look out for that if you're interested in that. But really, I'm just making this video as a just a collector's guide to the M17 series, as this hasn't been done before. The M17 series, if you ask me, doesn't get enough coverage. There's not too much actually known widespread about this face piece. It's usually only known among a select few amount of collectors. A lot of the information, most people don't really go into the M17 series, and that's kind of what I'm doing here. Is I want to, I like learning a lot about the M17 series, and as I'm learning about it, I'd like to share this information with you guys. The M17 series is really my favorite series of masks to do research on, so yeah, enough of my rambling though. I guess, yeah, stay tuned for that part 2 possibly, and yeah, if you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for some more M17 series videos here soon, since that's probably what I'm going to be doing, and yeah, have a nice day.